Hey there, welcome back to my channel. This is Allison from This Enchanted Hour, and today I wanted to take a break from our series about how children learn lessons from classic children's literature and instead do a curriculum review. So today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the Foundational Phonics Series. There are 2 books in the series. I have a previous edition here, I have a newer edition here, and I'm going to go through both. But I wanted to talk about this curriculum in particular because I had made a previous video about using this, and this was several years ago. We are still currently in book 2, Word Mastery, with my youngest, who is now in 4th grade, but she's almost done. We've taken our time with it because although she can read really well, I really wanted to go through all of the components of phonics, especially in this approach, in order to help her become not just a strong reader and fluent reader, but a good speller as well, and have the ability to write good sentences. So I'm going to dive right in here, and I'm just going to kind of flip through as I talk. This is the previous edition of Book 1, Letter Mastery. This is the first book in the series. So she started this when she was in 2nd grade. My son never did this, but he did book 2. He finished book 2 a year, maybe 2 years ago. So I just want to point out a few things that I found very interesting in this book in particular that you don't see everywhere else, and that is ear, tongue, and eye training. And so what that means is you're really training a child to hear closely and distinguish the sounds that they hear when they're saying letter sounds. You practice pronunciation, proper pronunciation, especially with blends. I found this is a really good practice to work with blends if that's new to your child or maybe that's something they struggle with. And then eye training, of course, is training them to recognize the letter in different fonts and when put together with other letters in words and sentences. So I'm going to skip right ahead to the first chapter. When my daughter went through this, we did 1 chapter a day because she was already in 2nd grade. I didn't feel the need to prolong anything. She could fly through each chapter. But the main components that I wanted her to experience that we didn't have in any of the other phonics curriculums or methods that we tried were all these different multisensory activities. So when she was first introduced to a letter, which of course at this point she already knew this letter, but let's pretend this is a child coming in, maybe they're kindergarten, 1st grade, even into 2nd grade like she was, and they're going to be introduced to the letter M. There's a reason for the order of the letters, which I'll talk about as I go through, but they're given a chance to practice with that sound in an alliterative phrase, so that's really fun. It's called mouth gymnastics. And then they also get to practice the letter in American Sign Language, which comes in handy as your spelling also in order to have a kinesthetic component to your spelling. And then she would have, during her lesson, she would have a picture study where she would find anything that begins with the M sound. Same here. This is a picture search, words that start with that sound. Then she would do a letter search and then draw something that started with the M sound. She chose mole. And then she had some light copy work, and then we had a little poem. And we went through, and every time that we, instead of circling, every time we went through, we heard the M sound, she would highlight it. I would highlight it for her. Then she had a quick little letter match, and we read Has Anyone Seen My Mouse that day, and she drew a picture. And again, this was way back in 2nd grade, so I'm not sure what that picture is, to be honest with you. Anyways, and then she moved on to A, and as she progressed, she got to N. Now, of course, at this point, she already knew how to read the word man. That was not difficult for her. But if you were starting a child, and this is the first phonics curriculum that they're doing, they're going to read a word right away. Within the first 3 chapters, they're going to read their first word, which is very satisfying for a new reader. And then as she progressed, I'll just kind of show you, there were poetry selections. We used a lot of highlighters with ours. That just seemed to help her kind of distinguish the vowel sounds without guessing. You see she colored some of the pictures as well. And again, she was much smaller then, so it's so funny how far she's come. So this was book 1, and there is an updated version of this. This is actually the 2nd edition, and there is a new 3rd edition of this, the different cover and even more comprehensive, and the font is a little bit different. And then my son, this is the Word Master he completed. This was the 2nd edition, and then this is the current 3rd edition, and you can see how much more she added, the author added to this curriculum, and I love it. Having gone through this with 2 kids now, 2 very different kids, the editions that they were in at the time were perfect for them. So I'm really glad it just kind of timed out that perfect secret sauce of homeschooling that they were in the right book at the right time. And you see with him, we also used a lot of highlighters. I'm just going to flip through this just to show you how we use the highlighters. Sometimes it'll say in the instructions to underline, and then we just use a highlighter instead. So you can really adapt this to any way that you like, or you can use it open and go. It's really quite flexible. That's one of my favorite things about this curriculum is I was able to adapt it to the age, learning style, and just approach in general for both of my children. And that way, although they were using the same curriculum, we did it different ways both times. And I think that was really beneficial for them. So this was my son's. I just want to show you the highlighting in that. And then my daughter moved up last year to book 2. This is the 3rd edition, and so the content is the same as far as I understand in this newer version, but the font is different, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But same with her. I went through and had her, she struggled a lot with differentiating vowel sounds in the beginning, and so we have continued to work on that even though she's a strong reader. We still have, I think we just finished chapter 10, or we're getting pretty close. Kind of show you where we're at. We're not quite done. After Thanksgiving, we will finish chapter 10, and then she's got just a little bit more left. I really don't want to show you too much of this because this is not the current edition. It's just the one she happens to be in. I'm going to show you more of this current edition here in just a second. But I just want to kind of show you that you can use this with a variety of ages. My son, I was not introduced to this curriculum until he was in 4th grade. We had tried a number of things that had worked pretty well, but I just felt like I was afraid he was missing some pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and scooch over to the new book because I know that's what you're really here to see. So this is the newest edition of Word Mastery, which is book 2. There's only 2 books in the whole series. That's another thing that I really love about this. It doesn't go on and on. By the time you finish this, you've covered over 3,000 words or more. Very effective manner. You've hit spelling, you've hit some grammar, sentence structure, things like that. I'm a former language arts teacher, so that's really important to me as a part of literacy, understanding not just the reading portion, but the grammar part. But let me backtrack just a little bit. I'll kind of show you the pages in here as we go and kind of tell you about my son's journey with this. So we tried a number of different things before I was introduced to this curriculum, and he was in 4th grade. He's now in 6th grade. Excellent reader, loves reading. I'm just going to continue to flip so that you can see. I know you're really here just to see inside, but with my son, I thought I need a little something that's a little more structured than what we were doing. We had had some really good luck with the McGuffey's readers. We had done the Treadwell readers when he was in kindergarten, 1st grade. But what he really needed were these word families. He did not make the connection for a while that if you just change one letter in a word, it becomes another word. That was a struggle for him. I'm not exactly sure why, but you know, sometimes our children are a mystery and we keep working with them until we solve the mystery and crack the code. And this was really the curriculum that did that for him. So another thing I wanted to point out about book 2 that helped my son in particular were these diacritical marks. And I know the McGuffey readers have diacritical marks, but they're not well explained in my opinion. And I know, you know, they were created a long time ago, so we'll forgive them for not explaining that well. I'm gonna hold this up just so you can see. So the diacritical marks is going to give you, will give your child a quick tip about how do we pronounce this word without really even having to think about it, because you practice it all throughout this curriculum. You're practicing the short sounds first, and you're having a lot of different exposure to these different kinds of things. So you've got the sound, you see the diacritical mark, and then you have your word families, and it's letting you know the word in is in a lot of these words. And then you have some copy work to practice, and the boxes allow your child to choose which words they would like to cover. So sometimes it helps you if you think, oh, I think they've got these words, and then you realize, okay, they might need a little help with swim. Then you let them do swim here and you let them do fins here. Even though swim is not technically in your word box, you would let them kind of practice the things that they needed to. So that was another thing that I really enjoyed about this second go round, different edition and how it's set up. The font's a little bit different. I feel like it's clearer now. My youngest, who is using the previous edition of this, she actually does her copywork in cursive because she's learned cursive. So you can really adapt this to whatever you need. I happen to be using this with 2 older children because I didn't come upon this until later in their reading fluency journey. So I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit to kind of get you into things like this. This was really helpful in the beginning when we started going over the syllables and how the syllables are broken down. This is so excellent for spelling because when they sit down to spell, you want them to think pumpkin, water, apple. And then of course these are easy to spell because they can just sound out the CVC words. But I found that doing these different practices was really helpful for them. Words like this, helping them break down a word was extremely helpful for both of my children. I did want to point out back here, I just saw an example of this. So there are times when words do not follow the rule that she's just introduced in the lesson, and she will put a box around that, and then down at the bottom it will explain to you why that is pronounced differently or how to pronounce it differently than what's in this box. So another thing that I absolutely loved about this, I almost wish I had another kid to take through this curriculum because it has been my absolute favorite. So if you want to drop your kids off my doorstep, I will walk them through this again if they need to learn how to read. That's how much I love this curriculum. So anyways, as they were making their way through this, I really appreciated the fact that we could just open and go with this. I did not have to fumble with like, where's the reader? Where are our words for the day? Do we need a little notebook in order to write these words in? I really appreciated the fact that everything was in here. And even like at the end of each chapter, they get to practice a little something that they've practiced the whole chapter through. And my daughter always loved coloring the blue ribbon. That was really satisfying to her to finish a chapter and color the blue ribbon. So there's a lot of little rewards that you could sprinkle in here without it really being necessary. I can't stress this enough that this is one of the most adaptable and flexible curriculums that I've ever used because it is so organized and systematic and everything builds upon each skill. So as they were getting older and getting into these later chapters, especially my son since he's finished this entire series, it was really beneficial for him to be applying these new skills that he was learning about grammar and parts of speech and things like that. He was able to apply that as well as he was going through. So I'm gonna go just a little bit further. Let me go to where we're at now. This is the new edition, of course. Like I said, she's done such a good job of constantly making sure that this is the most easy, open and go and comprehensive curriculum, because when you are a busy homeschool mom, here we are in chapter 10. So this is where we're at in our version, but this is the current version. I just want to make sure I was showing the most updated version of this, but I'm very excited to go through the rest of this because you see the amount that they're reading. Now, of course, my daughter's older, she reads on her own as well, but for a reading lesson, this is the perfect amount. And every single word that's in here and every single vowel couple that they've been practicing the whole chapter is in this reading selection. So they're really seeing words that they've already seen. There is nothing intimidating or scary about this because they have been exposed to all these words before. She's done an excellent job. Ariel, the author, has an excellent job of providing reading selections that really are tailored to the word families and the blends, vowel couples, whatever they may be. The reading selection is tailored to that. So the kids, are experiencing success right out of the gate every single lesson. That's another thing my daughter really loved about this is she is a perfectionist like her mom. I am a recovering one. I'm trying to help her not be one. But for her, being able to have success in each reading lesson was really encouraging to her. Instead of stumbling over words, she'd already seen all of these or they were pronounced out for her in these boxes ahead of time. And so for her little mini perfectionist heart that we're trying to overcome, this was a blessing to her to be able to have words that she had already practiced in the reading selection. Very much builds a sense of confidence as they're learning to read. Another thing I wanted to point out about this curriculum that I absolutely love is if you happen to have a child who is dyslexic, no matter how severe or how light or you think they may be, the kind of organized and systematic nature of this, where it's building upon building as they go through the lessons, is really beneficial to children that struggle with dyslexia or other learning difficulties. So this has been really helpful for both of my children who have at times exhibited a few indications that there might be a little dyslexia there. I'm not 100% sure, and I would never try to put a label on something that hadn't been looked at by a professional. However, just as we were learning how to read and we were continuing through these, I just noticed that my son in particular picked up a lot of skills for fluency and was able to internalize a lot of things and be able to apply that to things that weren't in this book. So this is by far, can't say this enough, my favorite phonics curriculum that we've used. And another thing I guess I want to point out too is that when I was speaking about sentence structure and grammar and things like that, we're actually going to go back through this one together, both kids, after Lydia, my daughter, finishes her version of Word Mastery. We're going to go back through this as a spelling/grammar curriculum. Although some of these words will be easy for them, I'm not expecting them to spell every single one. We are going to go through some of the principles again of spelling rules and practices that we've learned in here. And the other thing is learning how to label sentences. I was a language arts teacher for many years, and although we didn't do sentence diagramming in my class, we did practice with parts of speech. And because we've already been doing that, this would be a good way for us to practice on very simple sentences where we can label, you know, the pronoun and the verb, preposition, article, etc. So we're going to go back through this, not so much as a phonics curriculum because we're moving beyond phonics at this point, but I really felt like the way that the spelling rules were explained in this was very intuitive and explained well in a way that made sense, that could help my kids remember spelling rules without it being a heavy burden for them. So we're actually going to go back through this as a different kind of curriculum. I'm going to keep going as I talk because I know you really want to see inside of this. Another thing I really like are these cute illustrations that are in here. They work really well without being overstimulating. My oldest in particular does better when things are in black and white versus bright colors. That's very distracting for him. So I think he's going to enjoy going back through this and using it in a different way. He's been out of this curriculum for a year and a half, maybe 2 years at this point. So this will kind of be new to him, and it'll just be a way for him to really solidify his spelling skills and grammar. He really enjoys grammar. That's one of his strengths. So I'm excited to go back through this with him in a different way, even though we're not going to be learning how to read again, which I thought was really fun using this curriculum. I am looking forward to going back and revisiting this and approaching it from a different method. So I'm going to go all the way to the end to just kind of show you where you would end up by the time you were done with this curriculum. I'm skipping way ahead. So at the end of chapter 15, you're reading things like this, which especially for a younger child, this is quite a large portion. For my children at the ages that they are, this is pretty short and simple. So it also makes them feel good, like, oh, this feels easy. And then you have your milestone challenge, and then at the end, you have one last mastery milestone, final challenge to end with, and then it says, congratulations, you completed book 2. Did you know you've already read over 3,000 words? I mean, that makes them feel so good, especially the younger that they are. They really feel like, oh, I've really done something amazing by the end of this book. And it happens so gradually that they don't even notice. It doesn't even feel like it was work to them. So I hope this review has been helpful. I will return to my series after the holidays about how children learn lessons from classic children's literature, but I did want to share this because I know some people right now are looking at the curriculum, especially phonics curriculum, going, this is not for me and I need something different. So I wanted to share this as an option. It's a fantastic resource for teaching your child how to read. You can go as fast or as slow as you want. There is no rush. Like I said, I don't even feel bad that my 4th grader is still in book 2 because I am not willing to rush through something just to check it off a list or to have a gold star at the end of her name on a chart somewhere. I would rather her truly know this, and so that as she is becoming a stronger and stronger reader, she's able to read more and more difficult things because she feels equipped from this curriculum. So if you have any questions about this, please leave them below. Again, one of my favorite, can't say this enough, One of my favorite curriculums that we have ever used, much like the Rod and Staff workbooks that we used when my kids were much younger, which I also have reviews of on my channel. You can go check those out. This ranks in the top probably 3 curriculums that we've ever used that we just absolutely loved. Worked for both children. I applied it different ways with both children, and yet it still worked phenomenally. So I'm so grateful for that. And I just know how much time and effort that the author, Ariel Mount, put into this, and how much she continues to put into this. So please visit her website. I'll leave that down below. It's Little Seedlings Press. You can go visit and see some kind of the insides of these books, the inside of these books. And you can also read some of the science behind why this approach was what she used. So I'm going to leave you to that. I've given you a lot of information. I want to leave you with the confidence that this might be something you want to check out. So if you'll look down below, I have a link to this, and I hope to see you very soon in my next video. Bye.